After the death of Iltutmish, for a decade from 1236 to 46, as many as 4 descendants of Iltutmish sat on the throne of Delhi Sultanate, the most popular of whom was Raza Sultan. Balban, who was also one of the Chalisa, comes into prominence during this time period as the Naib-e-Mulk of Sultan Nasruddin Muhammad Shah, who ruled for 20 peaceful years post-1246. Nasruddin had been able to continue as a sultan for so long because he had willingly surrendered power to the Jihalgani and played a puppet contently. Therefore, though Balban sat on the throne as a sultan only after Nasruddin's death in 1266, it can be said that he was indirectly influencing the politics of Sultanate at a very deep level ever since 1246. Hi guys, welcome to Ihtihaaskar. My name is Kriti and today we're discussing the consolidation of Delhi Sultanate and almost a 40-year-old age of Balban. By medieval standards, 40 years is too great of a time period for any sultan to not only establish himself but also bring about a great deal of change. And that is exactly what Balban did. The first was getting authority back to the person of the sultan and the crown. After chaotic age of the Jihalgani and factionalism, the popular opinion of the sultan wasn't much. He was only seen as a puppet. There was no central authority and a rising threat of Mongols and rebelling Hindu Rais and chiefs. Balban was conscious of the fact that all of this was because of the state's incomplete consolidation. Following are some of the measures which he took up, not only to restore the crown, but also kingship and the polity of the state. Balban formulated his own theory of kingship based on the Iranian or the Sasanian monarchy, according to which the king was divine or semi-divine in character and answerable only to God, not to his intermediaries, that is the religious mullahs. These ideas were to some extent shared by the Hindus as well. He underlined the theory that king was the shadow of God, Zillallah. He claimed divine sanction for the office of sultan and fully exploited the religious sentiments of his people to strengthen his control over the state. Balban was determined to present himself as the sovereign of an integrated and centralized state, symbolized by a strong centralized monarchy, and one way to do that was with extravagant appearances. He maintained a splendid darbar which became famous all over Asia for its pomp and grandeur. Stern discipline was enforced and the courtiers and the foreign officials had to sit in strict, specified manner. In fact, he was so focused on becoming royal and showcasing symbols of royalty that he gave up drinking and stopped laughing in public, and nor did he allow any of his subordinates to smile in his presence. Did I mention he was stern? Balban is infamous for practicing discrimination against people who were not from pure Turk or Arab families. He considered the ethnicities of Hindus, Hindu converts or Indian Muslims and others like Afghans and Khiljis to be low-born and of inferior birth and therefore meted out unequal treatment. This is probably the biggest criticism of Balban as he ended up creating and promoting a racially segregated government at all levels. A strong centralized state needs a strong army. Balban therefore conceived an elaborate reorganization of the army. He separated the army establishment from the rest of the civil administration of the state by taking it out of the control of the Wazir and created a new post of Diwan-e-Ariz, or the army minister, for this purpose. This Diwan-e-Ariz was to recruit and train a central army under the control of competent military generals with their direct allegiance to the crown. And even he didn't enjoy the full command. The army was now directly under the sultan's control as opposed to earlier. Moreover, Balban increased the number of royal guards who were trained by the state and equipped them with the latest weapons for the personal safety of Sultan. Balban organized a very efficient system of espionage. He wanted to keep himself fully informed of the activities of bureaucracy and the governors. Many scholars have also called him a forerunner of Alauddin Khilji when it comes to establishing an elaborate spy system. After his accession to the throne, restoration of law and order in and around the areas of Delhi was the first priority of Balban. Plus, he was always eager to make himself the popular and just monarch in the eyes of his subjects. This was also closely tied to another of his agenda, which was the much bigger problem, that is the destruction of the Jailgani or the Chalisa. Balban was a Shamsi slave, a member of the Chalisa or the Jailgani himself. As you already know, he had risen to power and prominence using his identity as a Shamsi noble during the years of chaos after Iltutmish's death. But once he had assumed the role of Sultan, Balban wanted to establish an absolute hereditary monarchy, confined to himself and his family, and was therefore very eager to remove the ladder by which he had once risen to the exalted office of the Sultan. This he very cunningly achieved by transferring the other Chalisa as governors to far-off places, away from Delhi. He also didn't let them settle down in one place for too long, and he frequently changed their postings. But the most effective was the idea of recruiting new slaves or bandas to replace the older ones. And he was quite strict, along with the fact that he had an elaborate spy system. Even the littlest of offences of any of the Shamsi nobles didn't go unpunished. The destruction of Chalisa was one of the biggest achievements of Balban. You might have opinions about this guy, but you have to admit that he was one of the greatest sultans of Delhi. He established an absolute monarchy, didn't resort to new conquests, but focused on consolidating his empire, even though it was by brutal force and fear. After his death in 1287, the Sultanate was driven into chaos again for a brief period of time until it was taken over by Ghiyasuddin Khilji in 1290 CE. In the next video, we'll talk about the second and probably the most popular dynasty of the Delhi Sultanate, the Khiljis. That's it for today. Hi guys, hope today's video was simple and informative. If you liked what you saw, share it with your friends and family so that learning and reading history becomes more than just a textbook activity. And don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.